Hello and welcome to Lattes with Leanne, and I am thrilled to be here today with one of my old dear friends, Debbie Bannister, and Debbie is with Exchange Resources. They are probably the preeminent 1031 exchange company, and as you know, 2 weeks ago I was asked by a viewer to cover 1031 exchanges, and of course I thought of my old friend Debbie. We used to do these seminars together. It was really fun, right?
Really
and we're
fun.
going to do another one.
Yay!
Yay! In probably about 6 weeks. We're thinking middle of November.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
So anyway, I thought that we could start by answering, or at least endeavoring to answer, the viewer's question. Oh, and my friend viewer said to mention her name and put up her picture. I'll mention her name, it's Marianne, but I'm not going to put up her picture. However, her question was, she has a income property, a rental income property, and she wanted to know if it was better to 1031 exchange it. She didn't use the words 1031, but we know what she meant. Or is it better just to sell it and buy a new one, or just sell it and keep the money? Anyway, so maybe we can start by answering that question, which of course you can't answer because you don't know her.
Well, I'm going to give you some guidelines.
But exactly.
I'll give you some guidelines.
Perfect.
When it comes to trying to make that decision if you're going to do an exchange or not, first of all, this whole process only qualifies for investment property. And that's what you said she had.
Right.
So that part works. Second of all, what I personally would do is go to my accountant and say, I would like to sell this property for this amount of money. This is my, I would talk to you and get an idea of what my estimated closing cost would be.
Right.
This is my estimated closing cost. How much taxes would I have to pay if I did not do a 1031 exchange? So that way I have a plumb line. I just created a plumb line so I know where my comfort level is. So if I chose to pay the tax, I need to understand there's a few things that can make this taxable event really huge.
Yep.
And maybe a few things that could not make it so big. One, how long have I owned the property? If I've owned it for a long time and depreciated it out, say I've owned it for 30 years, and depreciation schedule is 27 and a half.
Oh, then it's going to be big.
Exactly. So
Oh
the
my
taxable
gosh.
event is going to be huge because not only do you have federal tax of 15%, you have state of approximately 13.3.
Yep.
So that's 28%. Then you have something called recapturing the depreciation. So for all that depreciation that was taken during the 27 and a half years gets tallied up, and I pay back 25% of that on top of my capital gains tax. And then we have something called Obamacare. If I'm married,
3.8%.
I have 3.8 extra to
Yep.
pay on anything over 250,000. If I'm single, 3.8 over anything of 200,000 more. So there's different layers of taxation. If I've owned it for a short time, maybe the depreciation may not be so bad, but the gain could be. So we just got to figure out with our accountant where that plumb line is.
Pulling out your hair, right? So
Exactly.
you need to talk to your accountant first, well, your realtor first,
Yes.
to find out the value, because without that value, you won't know where your plumb line starts.
Exactly.
So talk to your realtor first, get your value, your closing costs, then go to your CPA.
Exactly. And this is if you really don't know if you want to do an exchange. And the reason why people don't know if they want to do an exchange is because an exchange includes having to purchase another property. And that property must be used as investment property. So some people are thinking, I don't want to have any more investment property. I just want to sell. I don't want to have to do this. Can I just do an exchange? No, if you don't buy more property. So that's why it's important to get that number, because that could be the right fuel for you to understand, I can't pay these taxes. I'd rather have this money be working for me with more real estate.
Right.
So that helps you make that decision.
And you have to have it over 2 tax years, correct? As an income producing property, and after that 2 years, then you could transfer it to a different use, like maybe you move into it or something like that.
So you really have to keep it for 24 months as a rental, because IRS looks at two things. Number one, most important, what was your motive or intent at the time of buying? Exactly. So if my intent is to hold this as investment property, then it qualifies. And then 2 years later, I convert it and maybe move into it or make it a second home, then I'm in compliance with the code. But if my intent was to begin with, I just want to hurry up and get through this time as fast as I can so I can live in this property, that could disqualify it. Rent it first.
Never rent it right away.
And don't
even talk about considering moving into it with your best friend or your worst enemy especially, right?
Exactly. Worst enemies, the best friend, but worst enemies about.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe now that we know whether we should 1031 or not, we should go into a couple of the quick rules for 1031 exchanges, like the time frame, because we know that if we go one day over on the time frame, boom, there goes your 1031.
And you bring up a good point, because the 1031, there's many rules that we're going to talk about, and these rules, if they're not followed perfectly, you could disqualify yourself.
Yes, so and I've seen it happen.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, I'm sure you have.
Yeah. So, first of all, from the close of the property you want to sell, we call that the relinquished property, the sale property. When that escrow closes, the day after closing, 2 clocks will start. The second clock, you get a total of 180 days. And that 180 days allows you to buy, close escrow, and be done with your exchange. But the first 45 days of that 180, that first 45 days is separated out for a different clock. And that clock is called the identification period.
Right.
And that's the hard one. That's the one that can really disqualify you.
Exactly. That's where I see people they identify only one property, and we know we can do more than one property, but they only do one, and then the house burns down.
Exactly.
Or an earthquake comes, or something strange that you never even considered happens. So it's really best, I think, from a realtor standpoint, to start identifying in advance, right? And to focus in on, now you can answer this question, how many do we get to identify? And there are specific rules for specific purchases, so maybe you can cover a little bit of that quickly too.
Okay, so the identification process, there's 2 rules. One, you can identify up to 3 properties with no regard to value. You just can have a total of 3, which can work great. The second rule is really a rule if you're selling a higher value property and you want to break that out and buy several smaller properties. That's called the 200% rule. So what you do to achieve that is you double your sales price. So say you sell for $3 million, now you're doubling it and you have $6 million. So you can identify as many properties up to that doubled amount. So now you're not stuck to 3 if you're buying smaller values. And then you just buy whatever's on that list.
So if you're selling something approximately $3 million, you can identify up to $6 million and as many properties as possible, adding them up to that $6 million number.
Exactly. And the thing is, you don't have to buy everything on that list. You just buy whatever's equal or greater to what you're selling for, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in a minute.
Yes.
But so this gives you the opportunity to having more properties. But the best strategy is exactly what you said.
Start early.
Start on the sale escrow, and you don't have to worry about putting things on the ID sheet yet. But get offers accepted. Present offers. Try to get offers accepted, and then when it's time to identify, you're going to identify a fact opposed to a wish.
So true. So true. And I that's where I see people. I've had calls from people where I only have 15 days left to identify. I'm going, oh my God, who are you using as a realtor? Hello.
Exactly.
I mean, you should have started before you sold, not wait until 30 days after you sold. It is crazy.
And that's the value of working with someone with your experience, because you know you have to start early. You understand what you need to do so that this client can have a successful exchange. That's the secret.
Yes.
That really is.
Debbie, this is going so long and it's so interesting, and we do have our seminar coming up. So let's stop here and we'll go into the
Economic factors.
the economic factors of a 1031 on our next segment.